Hey YouTube, welcome back. Today we will continue our series in AWS Serverless Fundamentals. Today we'll talk about the Lambda Runtime API. The AWS Lambda Runtime API is an interface that allows you to define custom runtimes for Lambda, for AWS Lambda. This is particularly useful if you need to run a Lambda function in a programming language or specific language version that is not natively supported by AWS Lambda built-in runtime. So let's just try to give an example for it. So for instance, if you want to run a Lambda function in a language like Rust, which is not natively supported by AWS Lambda, you can use the Lambda Runtime API to create a custom Rust runtime. And you will need to package the Rust runtime along with your function code and bootstrap file that the interface interacts with the Lambda Runtime API. So in conclusion, you can think that the Lambda Runtime API is a powerful feature for developers who need more control over the runtime environment or need to use languages and versions not supported out of the box by AWS Lambda. It provides flexibility and control, enabling broader range application and use cases in the serverless paradigm. So let's try to talk about the Lambda Runtime API. So let's just see how this will work. So we have the Lambda service, and the Lambda service will send the request to API endpoints. We only focus on the Lambda Runtime API, and the Runtime API will send the executions to the function runtime. We'll try to call the function. So we can see that the AWS Lambda provides an HTTP API for custom runtimes to receive invocation events from Lambda and send response back within the Lambda execution environment. So if you want to create let's talk about how to create a Lambda API for yourself. So if you want to create an API request to your runtimes, like if you want to create that, you have runtimes get the API endpoints from AWS Lambda Runtime API environment variable, and add the API version and add the desired resource path. So let's just give an example for that. So an example, it will be, let me make it quite wide. So this would be like a good example. So you have an environment variable for the AWS Lambda, and you have the version, the runtime, the invocation, and you have the next. What is next? Let's talk about the next invocation. So first, let's just have a new. Let's talk about the next invocation here. So first, I will put the path for us to see, and I will say, okay, so it's the method is get. The runtime sends this message to Lambda to request an invocation event. The response body contains the payload from the invocation, which is a JSON document that contains event data from the function trigger. The response headers contains additional data about the invocation. So let's just talk about the response header. So the first thing that I want to talk about the response header will be. Can I make it like that? Will be the Lambda AWS request ID, and this one the request ID, which is identifies the request that trigger the invocation function, and it's we can give an example for it. For example, for a specific example, it will be like, oh no, it will be something like that. This is for example, and after that we can talk about the Lambda runtime deadline millisecond, and the lambda runtime deadline millisecond, and this one, the date that the function times out in Unix time in millisecond. And let's just give an example for this one, like example, it will be something like that. And after that, we have the lambda runtime invocation function ARN. So, and this one is the ARN of the lambda function version or alias that specified the invocation, the invocation. And example for this one, it will be quite long. The example here, example, it will be like something like that. And we have after that the lambda runtime trace ID, and this is the AWS X-rays tracing header. We will make video about that. And we have the lambda runtime client context, and this one for invocation from. This one is from this one for invocation from the AWS Mobile SDK data about the client application and devices, etc. We have the lambda runtime cognito identity. For invocation from the AWS Mobile SDK data about the Amazon Cognito identity provider. So it's important that do not set a timeout on the GET request, as the response may be delayed between when Lambda bootstrap the runtime and when the runtime has an event to return. The runtime process may be frozen for several seconds. It's important to say that. Also, the request ID tracks the invocation within the Lambda. You can like use it to specify the invocation when you send the response. Also, the tracing header contains a trace ID, parent ID, and sampling decision. If the request is sampled, the request was sampled by Lambda for an upstream service. The runtime should set the there's something called the Amazon Trace ID with the value of the header, and the X-ray SDK reads also the this to get the IDs and determine whether the trace whether to trace the request or not. We have the invocation response. We want to talk about that also. So in the invocation response, it will be a post method. It will be like runtime AWS request ID. It's a variable. This one you can think about it as a variable, and it's a post method. After the function has run to completion the runtime sends the invocation response to Lambda for synchronous invocation. The Lambda sends the response to the client. Maybe we can just find give like a example. So this will be the request will look like. Let me just make it quite wider. Can we make it like smaller here? So yeah. So as you can see here, we can have this one, and we have the version, the request ID, the response, and you can get a success or not. Also, we want to talk about the initialization error. So if the function returns an error, or the runtimes encounters an error during the initialization, the runtimes uses this method to report the error lambda. So basically, let's just talk about the path here, and it's a post method, and it has a header. The header, it will be lambda runtime function type error. It has only, I guess, one header that we can talk about. This error type that the runtime encountered required no. This header consists of string value. Lambda accept any string, but we recommend a format of category reason. For example, it will be something like that. Just for example, it will be something like that, like runtime no such handler, runtime.api key don't found, runtime.configure invalid, unknown reason, etc. And the body parameters like error request information about error required no. Also you can have like a JSON format here, like something like that, and it just have like a string, a text that describe the error type is a string, the stack trace like array of string, etc. Also note that the Lambda accepts any value of for error type. It's important to know that. And we can make like give an example, like this is, we can give an example how it looks like error processing event data, event type invalid, event data exceptions, etc. The response property, we have like a status response. This is string status information within like 202 response. Error response, we have additional error information sent with error response codes, like error response contains an error type and an error message. We have a response code. The response code is 202, accepted, 403, forbidden, 500, just like internal server error, like container error. I guess we can, the last thing that we could talk about is the invocation error. Like this was the initialization error. We can talk about the invocation error, like an error happened during the invocation. So in the invocation error, first let's talk about the path. It will be I guess post method also, and you will, I guess you will have the error be the Lambda runtime function error type. Let's just have this one. I guess we have only one error, one header. This one, like the function returns an error or the runtime encounters an error. The runtime uses this method to report the error to the Lambda. This is the header that you can see here. We have the error type that the runtime encountered required no, for example. This header consists of a string value. It's as a previous. This string, Lambda accepts any string, but we recommend again the same format. We'll just talk about it. It will be like, let's just see this. This is format that it's recommended by AWS documentation. And the following example, I will try to show you right now how it will look like. So as you can see here, it's a string. So we have error parsing event data, error type invalid event data, and stack trace. And the response code, we have 202 with 202 which accepted, 400 with bad requests. We have 403 with forbidden, 500 with container error, and the response body parameters will be like the status response. This is the string status of that sends 202. We have error response, additional error information sent with error response, and yeah, that's it. That's the 4 things that you should know about the runtime API. And how you will do it, what is the guest method, what is the post method, and yeah, that's it for this video. And I hope you like my content. If you like my content, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll never miss a video, and see you in future problem.